So just check the email address that you signed up for. Everything goes through Eventbrite. So look for Eventbrite for the emails. I just put the downloads in the chat. Now, this is just going to happen that people come in late and I mean, they're not even late right now even, but people will come in later and not see the files. So what I'm going to have to do is blitz you a little bit with the files in the chat. If somebody is asking for them, go ahead and copy and paste it again. Uh, those will be the source of files for today. So I'm going to do that in a couple minutes again. In the meantime, as people are filing in still, I'll just do a quick introduction. So welcome to Modern Excel Demo Day. My name is George Mound. I'm the founder of StringFest Analytics. I do data analytics training and consulting. I hail from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm the author of a couple of books with O'Reilly Media on data analytics in Excel. I'm also a Microsoft Excel MVP. I've taught over 400,000 people on LinkedIn Learning. So I like to do these sessions just as a really basic hands-on primer to all the things that you could be doing in Excel to get faster insights, make fewer mistakes, not think that you need to pass things off to another team, that you need access to more expensive software. There's a lot of stuff that you can do right in Excel that you might not know about. So this is just a gentle introduction to that stack. If you're so inclined, there are going to be lots of other opportunities to work with me, and I'm going to talk about those as well. This is just the on-ramp. This is step one. So this is really not meant to be everything that you should know in an hour. I'm not that good. Okay. So it takes a little while longer to explore everything, and I want to give you a lot of options to do that. With that being said, we are gonna get started right away. Like I said, the downloads are right here in that chat. So go ahead and click that button, the link I should say in the chat, and that should just trigger a download in your browser. Okay. You should get a folder that will populate in your downloads. Okay. And then the only thing I would ask of you, just to make sure that everybody's extracting that folder, otherwise you may run into some problems. If you do have a question about that, you're going to notice I do have everybody muted right now. I've had issues with hot mics in the past, but you're more than welcome to use the chat. Also, at the end, there's probably going to be time left over. I could probably bring you on stage if you want to use your camera and your microphone. But for right now, chat is the best way. Okay. I will ask you to do that too with this being online. You know, I am putting as much effort into this as I would with like a real life client. So I would ask of you to like treat this as seriously as you would with, you know, an actual engagement at work. So please be my eyes and ears. This is online training, so I don't know what's going on out there. If you have a question, I kind of have to depend on you. I can't see the deer in the headlights look. So please do let me know if you have a question. You know, I do like to do these, but I do like to do them even more when I know that there's something happening out in, you know, cyberspace and I'm not just talking to my screen. So I would ask that of you. And the first step I'm going to do is just give me like a thumbs up if you do have the chat or if the file's open, I should say. I left one in the last chat and I see some, okay, Tim, Lorraine. Okay, cool. That's just let me know that you're able to download those. If you are having a problem with it, let me know and I can try to help, but it should be fairly straightforward. The only caveat, just to make sure you extract those folders, or that folder, I should say. All right. Any other questions? Everybody good? Cool. I think I see something going on in the chat, so I'll give everybody a moment to finish there. Okay, as that's going on in the chat, let's just walk through what's in this folder for you. So most of the action is going to be in our workbook. we're going to open wholesale customers. So you may as well open that right now. Okay. Okay. So Tim's playing hooky from vacation. Interesting vacation move, but do what you have to do on a Friday. All right. We do have this workbook. There are some other PDFs. These are just supplemental sources of information for you, and the slides are here. But again, this is really designed to be hands-on. If you're able to open your workbook and follow along with me, that's how I'm designing this to be set up. Okay. I am here. I'm not, this is not recorded. I haven't, I've got to walk through everything live. So you're welcome to follow along with me. And I don't want to just read slides off of a recorded webinar PowerPoint like a lot of these end up being. Okay, I am here. I am happy to help. All right, so we're going to start with Excel tables. This is a really must know for starting to modernize your Excel stack. If you're used to your data looking pokey, formatting slowly, breaking, you're having formulas that don't update the right way, you want to know about tables. So that's what we're going to start with. And we start with this because this really is kind of our gateway into what we'll call modern Excel, which is some of the newer features like Power Query, which we'll talk about, and even arguably AI, which I haven't used that word until now. We will talk about AI in a little bit, but we're not using Copilot, and just because not everybody has it. But we do all have Excel, I hope. And what we're going to do is take this worksheet, looks like a pretty usual set of sales. I'm going to go ahead and just click anywhere in there. Doesn't matter where. We're going to go to insert. We're going to go to table. Now, if you highlight over that, you will notice there's a keyboard shortcut. I will say that if I do something some way and you do something another, you're welcome to comment your way in the chat. There are usually more than one way to do things in Excel. I try to do things like the more beginner-friendly way, but if you have an alternative, you're welcome to share it. I'm not saying that your way is wrong. I just, as a trainer who's taught this to a lot of people, I have ways that I find click a little better. So, again, keyboard shortcuts are fine. I tend not to use them as much right now. So we're going to go to insert and table. We're going to get this marching ants around our data set. Our data is going to go from A1 through age 441. That is right. Okay. Excel is going to be pretty smart about intuiting where this data source is located. It's worth a double check if you're not sure, but I'll tell you right now, I've taught this data set a lot of times. We're good. So go ahead and click OK. All right, so that's already looking really nice. Already a nice win. And you'll notice here that when you head to your ribbon, there's going to be a new tab on your ribbon called Table Design. If I click off of this table, it's not there anymore. So it'll only appear when you're inside of your table. So I'll go to Table Design, and right over here under Table Styles, there are lots of options for colors. Some of these are a little crazier than others. That one's a little wild for my liking. So we're just going to use the default, but this is useful if you're putting decks together or workbooks. You need a standard color palette, for your company, whatever. You're constantly updating your data just to make it look pretty. Tables are already a win there. But we're not going to stop there. Table style options is over here to the left, and these are just some other ways to format the look and feel of your table. There is a filter button right here. If you do or don't like that auto filter, you can easily turn that off. There are other ways to do it, but having it right there is convenient. Some of these, you could turn off the header. I don't know why you do that. You can play around with this. We're not going to go through all of them. But I'm going to turn on the total row. This is really handy. I don't know if you ever have this where sometimes you just want to get a grand total. You maybe want to see the totals of your different columns and just have that easily turned on and off. I'll turn this on right now. So the default option is going to be sum of the last column. If you don't like that, you can add other ones. If I wanted to make a sum of detergent, sum of frozen, you could do whatever you want here. And again, come back up here and just turn this off when you're done. So that could be useful, depending on what you're trying to do. Everything here is just trying to speed up your insights. Okay, so I'll leave that off. I'm going to leave this color as it is. Any questions so far about what we've done? Just getting our data into a table and then looking at some of the appearance options. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to add a calculated column here. And I'm going to come up to the right. So let's say that we wanted to find, we're just going to say there's a milk tax for some reason. It's 10% of milk sales. I don't know. We'll insert that column. I'm going to hit enter. You'll notice that instantly that column gets added to our table. So again, we're trying to get away from manually inserting columns that might break things downstream. The idea with this is that everything's really one coherent entity with different pieces and parts that we can parse apart and easily get the insights that we need. Even something like if, let's take milk. Now, what I'm going to do is hit my equal sign. I'm going to say, okay, well, I want 10%, but we're not doing the like D2 and E25. We're not doing those coordinates anymore. Everything is going to be named after what element of the table it is. So we're really starting to use Excel more like a programming language. This is going to make working with AI a lot easier. I don't know if you've had this where you've tried to get help from ChatGPT, but it doesn't really understand the context of your workbook, and you paste the formula in and it thinks that maybe your current cell is in like A15, but it's actually an A14, and all the references you got to scoot over. We don't want that, right? We really want just this formula will work anywhere in the workbook. Okay, so let's go ahead and take milk. We're going to do 0.1. We're going to hit enter. All right, that's our formula. This at sign, what this is saying, it's just referring to the milk value in that row. That's all that is. So rather than G2, or B2, B3, B4, we're not doing that, right? We're just going to use the same formula. It's going to be a reference to that row. Okay. And you'll notice the other thing is I don't have to drag my formula down anymore. That's done too. So we're really eliminating a lot of steps. And just even now, think about all the steps that we've eliminated, right? Formatting our data, manually adding our totals, manually adding a column, like all that stuff is done. All right. So we can keep going here. And, if I were to maybe let's add another value for milk, I'm just going to put a placeholder right here. I'll say 20,000, and you'll see that that gets added. The row gets added, the column gets added. Everything is like automatic, scalable, less likely to break. And that's the whole point of why we're doing this. I'm going to undo that row. You see we had rows, we had columns. A lot easier to update and scale this thing. Similar situation over here. Let's say we want to find maybe the total milk tax. All right. So I'm going to start my sum. Okay. I am going to do the usual, right? Fill this in. I believe control space is going to, yeah, highlight that whole column. So just a nice keyboard shortcut there. Okay. And we'll close our parentheses. And again, we're not doing like the A12 through A56 thing anymore. The nice thing here, again, if these rows update, I'll go back to the end of the table here. If I put, I believe this one was milk. Yeah, column D. Let's put 20,000 here or whatever number. Okay, I'll come up to the top. That's going to update. So that sometimes works when you're using the alphanumeric references. Sometimes things break, and we don't want things to break. So that's really good. The only thing I don't love about this is this table one. It's not a very good name. It's not really clear what this table refers to. So I'm going to go to my formulas and let's go to my name manager. And then let's go over to edit. I'm going to call this just, I don't know, something like sales would be fine. Whatever you need to indicate what this column and I'm sorry, what this table really represents. And I'll close that. And this will update. So this is a lot clearer. And now what's really nice about this is, let's say you're making like a summary report over here and you want to come up with, total milk tax or something like that. Now, you're probably used to having to do, oh, some, and then like, well, where was that data again? Right? Like, I gotta come back over here and, oh, where was that data? Well, no, we don't have to do that. Sum, okay? We're gonna say sales, all right? And then inside the brackets, we're gonna find the sum of the milk tax, all right? And close that. So what you're seeing, and hopefully that's clicking. I was able to refer to this table without needing to go back to this worksheet. That saves a lot of time. Anytime you're like manually flipping between your worksheets, right, and you're manually selecting your ranges, that eats up like inordinate amounts of time that if you have really good names for everything, okay, you can just totally type that out, like programmers would. All right. Okay, somebody's all right, Isabel. There will be a recording. Will there be a list of functions used? Um, well, you can look at the recording, but yeah, I will send out the recording. All right. Okay, so that is tables. We named our table, we named our column, we looked at rows, we looked at columns. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this because we are gonna not want that later. So if you have any extra rows or columns, go ahead and just delete those. All right, and let's just get back to our fresh data set. Okay, any questions about tables before we move into analyze data? Oh, okay, and also people who just came in, if you do want to follow with the workbook, I'm going to put the files in the chat again. All right. Okay, we're going to get into AI. We're not going to look at Copilot. Not everybody has it. I talk about AI in other classes, but not today. Well, we are talking about AI, but not Copilot. This is the very basics. Okay. Let's go back to our workbook. And let's say that you have this data. Great. It's formatted. You still need some insights from it. Okay. Maybe you're putting a report together. You don't know where to start. Maybe it's like the end of the day. You just need something answered really fast. Somebody's asking, like, well, what were the total sales in milk or something like that. So this is a really nice little tool. And again, this is a really basic AI application that most of you will have in Excel without needing Copilot or subscriptions or anything. If you're on 365, I believe is what you'll need. So if you are in an earlier version, you may not see this, but hopefully a lot of you will. We're going to go to data and we're going to go to analyze data. All right. And I'll turn this thing on and you'll see that we do have. The other thing is make sure you're just clicked in this table somewhere and then click on analyze data. Ideally, you're going to see some insights pop up here. All right. So some of these are going to be better than others. This is AI, which means that what I'm seeing may be different than what you're seeing. The nice thing too with this is, everything's using Excel objects. So if you want to double check, are these numbers right? Okay. Is this hallucination? Well, I mean, the reasoning might not be right, but this is a pivot table. So if I insert this, it's pretty easy to cross-check that these numbers are accurate. And we'll get some more insights here. Some of these maybe, like I said, better than others. Okay. We do have an option to ask our own questions. So here's a suggested one. It says insights for frozen. Okay, region 3 accounts for the majority of frozen sales. It's kind of interesting, I guess. I can insert that, maybe see why region 3, it does look like, more than like twice the sales of the other departments or the other regions. Cool. Okay. Quick insight. Good to know. Okay. I'll come back over here and yeah, maybe we want to know, like I said, what are total milk sales? Okay, we'll get that. It's a pivot table. We can insert this stuff. Once you have it, you can update this, customize it, whatever you need to do. This is not going to be your tool if you want to say, like, I want to build a dashboard and I need help with this formula. It's pretty naive in terms of what it can do for you. It's really meant to just help with like one-off questions about your data, but it's super fast and it will get you some interesting insights. Okay. But with this being a more naive AI, it may make mistakes about understanding the intent of your data. And this gets us to our next topic on data structure, data quality, which can't be said in Excel without Power Query. So what I'm going to ask right now is, what are total sales by region? Okay, go ahead and ask that. All right, we're going to see analyze data really struggles here. It's going to give us sum of region. That's not super helpful. Okay, so what's going on here? Now, if you use a more modern tool, like if you're using Claude or ChatGPT, especially a paid version, very unlikely that you'll have this problem. But because this just doesn't have like the context and meaning, it doesn't understand the nuances of language very well. Okay, it's looking literally for a sales column. I'm asking for total sales. So if you're like a naive robot, you're going to say, okay, total sum region is my dimension. Okay, and sales is my measure. If you're familiar with that language from like Power BI or something, we don't really have a measure here called sales. And as far as this AI knows, like these are all different measures that are measuring completely different things. Even though these are all dollar signs, these may as well be apples and bowling balls to a really naive AI. And even though smarter AIs, are good with intuiting that logic, still better to feed them better quality data, just like as humans. Yeah, you could slam Big Macs every day, but it's probably better to give yourself, raw, clean food. So we want to give our AI raw, clean data and not this kind of processed, pivoted data, which causes a lot of problems. So we're going to say something like channel, we're going to say region. Okay, we want something that looks like this. We're going to say department, and we're going to say sales. So we're going to unpivot this data set. I know, like I used to work with an ERP system that loved putting all of the months of the year across columns, and I was constantly looking for ways to reform that because I wanted to report on different measures year to date, quarter to date. It was really hard to do that if you have, any kind of measure pivoted across your columns. So Power Query is going to help us just one and done fix that. And I would really encourage you. I know AI, Copilot everywhere, that's fine. But, if you don't know like the very basics of Power Query, don't like it's just a distraction, all the Copilot AI stuff. Okay, so what we need to do here is we're going to click on our data here, just anywhere in wholesale customers. We're going to go over to get and transform data. There's going to be this button from table/range. So go ahead and click on that one. Okay, and we'll load this in. Now, if you've never seen this before, it may be kind of startling. We are going to get a pop-up editor menu here. It's going to kind of look like Excel, but it's not really Excel, but it is because we're still in Excel. The biggest difference is you'll notice that, if I came into my data source here and I try to type in any of these cells, or I try to like delete a row or do anything like that, we cannot do that. So we're in a really locked down environment here. Everything we do is audited and tracked. Okay, so if you've had reports that you forgot how they were made and a number is wrong, and then your auditors are wondering how you got this number, and you're on vacation and somebody's calling you, right? We want a clean recipe for cleaning these data steps. Okay. We don't, and this is again, AI, like AI is great, but it's a little different every time. We probably don't want any variations in these steps. We just want a clean 1, 2, 3. This is what we did. This is how we got it. We don't want any surprises, and we don't want to be doing this manually because the more manual stuff we do, the longer it takes, the more errors you're going to have. So this is really the gist of what we're doing here in Power Query. Everything you'll see up here more or less has to do with like cleaning your data, right? So whether it's removing rows, keeping your columns. If I right click on a column, you'll notice all this stuff, right? Replace values, fill values, etc. Okay, on pivots over here, this is what we want. We're going to need to make a couple of adjustments to our data selection though. I'm going to hold down channel. I'm going to hold down control. So if you are following along, this is the part that is easy to lose a step. So just ask me to do it again if you need me to, and I'll probably do it again anyway. Hold down channel. Okay, we're going to click channel. We're going to hold on control. We're going to click region. We're going to right click and we're going to unpivot other columns. So if you're curious why unpivot other columns, it's just a little faster than selecting all the other columns and unpivoting those. This is just a faster and a little bit more robust of a way to do it. So let's unpivot our other columns and you'll see we get that change. All right, let me come over here and do that again. Click channel, hold on control, click region. Okay, unpivot other columns. That's the step that you really don't want to miss. Okay, and that formats. And then what we'll do here is where it says attribute, we're just going to double click on these values, call this something like department. Okay, and then call this something like sales. All right. Any questions on that? Everybody good with what we're doing and why we did that and how we did that? Okay. So the biggest thing here is, like I said, we maybe without knowing it, set up basically a script to run. So each time this happens, when we get new data coming in, the data changes, and this could be a big thing, if you're like month-end reporting, all the stuff you got to do on a Monday. Okay, if you're doing a lot of like hiding this row and we need to filter and add this number in manually, you really want to get away from that stuff, and this is really the tool that's going to help you do that more so than AI will help you with coming up with like interesting ideas and insights and stuff like that, but all that stuff comes later, right? You need clean data first, and you need like a reporting pipeline first, and this is the tool that's going to let you do that. If you'll see over here on applied steps, you may have seen me kind of fiddle with this earlier. This is really our play-by-play relay of what went on with our data. So this is taking us, okay, that's our source, that's point A, right? And rename columns, this is point B. All these other steps along the way were things that we did to get the data in the way that we wanted it. All right. There's so much more I could say about this tool. Obviously, we're not going to do it right now. But like I said at the beginning, this is just the start. Okay. Again, this is just a little survey tour, get you thinking about how could I maybe be doing things better with my data, with my reporting, with how I use Excel. So we're going to go ahead and close and load this. Okay. Load to. We're going to bring this back into the workbook. So I will load this into a new worksheet in our table. I'll click OK. And we'll have a nicely cleaned worksheet here. And we will. Okay, so queries and connections, data. If you missed a step, if you want to try that again, if you want to double check what you did, queries and connections is going to be your gateway back to Power Query. You'll see sales is a query right here. At any point, I can edit this, okay, and that'll bring me back into Power Query. So everything here is saved. It's tightly secure back in its place in Power Query. You can always go back there, but we do have this data loaded into a worksheet. I'm going to go to data again. I'm going to go to analyze data one more time. So let's just see the before and after, right? I'll click on analyze data. I would suggest to just click this again with your cursor selected in this table just to rerun the insights. And we'll still get some interesting insights here. I'm going to ask total sales by region. Okay. And this time we'll get what we want. Okay. Sales by region, insert pivot chart. That is better. That's a lot more useful than just summing up the region values. And that's really the importance of well-structured data. And obviously, unpivoting is just one of many, many things that could go wrong with your data. Whether you need to split your columns, you have multiple data sets that you want to merge together, whatever the heck it is, Power Query is going to help you do it. And it's a really useful tool, again, so you have all the foundations in place to get the insights that you need from AI. And this is a really simple example of that I just showed you. Okay. Any questions about that, whether it's analyze data or Power Query, since we kind of use those in tandem? Okay, so I'm assuming everything's good. I haven't heard anything. I hope that this is all making sense. All right. I would hate to log off of this call with no, and find out that this all didn't make any sense. So just let me know. All right. Okay, we did that. Okay, so there's so much more stuff that we could talk about. Like I said, we looked at, for example, using our tables. Okay, if we wanted to get more advanced, we didn't look at how to use multiple tables together. Maybe you have a table with like customer data, you have a table with orders data, you have a table with like inventory. You need to bring all those together and start coming up with like, what are my year-to-date sales? What are my outages? What are my reviews across products? That stuff you're going to need some other tools, things like the data model, DAX, if you've heard about those, particularly in the context of Power BI, we can use those in Excel as well. Okay, we did look at Power Query. We really basically only did one step. Okay, that data set I gave to you as a table. What if you have data coming in from like SharePoint or Salesforce or wherever? Power Query can handle all those things. Okay, so if you want more of a pipeline where you have data coming in from a whole folder, that's on the table as well. And obviously, analyze data is good, right? It will help you with quick insights, but it doesn't really help with saved analysis, audit trail, any kind of reproducible reporting pipeline. So what I showed you, suffice to say, is really step one of a much bigger process. And that's really the gap that you want to think about filling once you've seen this. So some of the things that could help you, I do have a 5-day AI-powered Excel blueprint. We're going to talk about the same ideas that I did now. We talk about Power Query in that. So if you're not already subscribed, and I suspect a lot of you are, you can get that at my website. These slides will be in the downloads. And again, I'm going to package all this up in an email and send it out with the recording and all that. So just you could just take a look at that later. LinkedIn, I post a lot pretty much every day. I post a lot of free stuff. I publish a lot. It's substantive material. I don't gate it. Okay. If free is where you want to stay, that's cool. All right. The thing I would say about free things, and you could use the stuff that we talked about and the free stuff, but I've had hundreds of thousands of learners, so I know a few things about how people learn Excel. And I will say that what happens is that people watch a demo, they try it, okay, maybe you hit a snag, you may or may not get an answer, okay, and you just kind of give up. So you don't have the motivation to actually take what we did and not go back to doing things the old way. Free content is great at showing you what's possible. What it's not going to do is, kind of get you through that messy middle where you got to start thinking about, well, how does this actually apply to my own data and my own workflows? And that's just the nature of free stuff. So, if you've been to my webinars, this is like the fourth or fifth or sixth time. I'm not trying to call you out, but like I would really think about that, that's just kind of the nature of the beast that, just coming here and seeing what's possible is very different than actually implementing it with your own stuff. And that's where you just need more structure for that the paid offerings are going to help you out with. So again, if you want to keep, looking at the free stuff, that's cool. But, I've trained for 10, 15 years now, hundreds of thousands of people. I just know what's going to happen. Okay. So I work with people at different levels. I have courses if you want to learn through live workshops, self-paced courses, when to help you understand how these tools work together. If you're in more of a team basis, I can come out to your team. We will start again, really, since I'm with your team, I can look at your workflows and your pipelines and start applying some of these principles and help you get there. I'm not going to fix things for you because, again, if I just fix it and walk away, things break, and I want you to know how to fix it yourself. And then finally, at the organization level, and this is more, fully modernizing your approach to working with Excel analytics. So I suspect most of you are probably more at the individual or possibly the team level. I will have resources for all that stuff in the email and in the downloads. In fact, if you're thinking like, whoa, where do I start? I get it. There is a where to start with my courses right here. Okay, so what this will do is just walk through some of these are like $15. Like I'm really, I try to make this stuff approachable and I really want to help you, start really getting committed to doing this. Because just seeing it in a 1 hour webinar is a great start. It's the beginning, it's not the end, let's say. All right, so there's all that stuff too. All right, so that's really that. Okay. All right, yeah, you can look at this later if you want. Modern Excel starter kit. So just to leave you with some tangible action steps. If you want, just where do I go next? Okay, look at the downloads. I do have a starter kit here. This is just going to be some supplemental posts and so forth about what we talked about and getting a little further there. Okay. Um, I do have a membership. You can talk about that. Okay. Share this with people who are still doing it the hard way. I'm going to post this. Okay. Follow me on LinkedIn. And then if you are on a team, you're more than welcome to book me. But I would hope that you take this information, you start thinking about how you can apply it. I'm more than happy to help you out and point you in the right direction. And that's really it for right now. So let me take a look at the uh, comments. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat, but we still have like, I think I scheduled this for an hour. I'm not going to sit here for 20 minutes if we don't have to, but I'm happy to take any questions before we log off. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop recording as well. Okay. And again, this recording will go out in the email.